Determine your core values to be a DNA gatekeeper. By the end of this video, you're going to know what your core values are, why you need to know your core values, and also how to know what the core values of other people are. Hello, my name is Temi and welcome to Timeline. It is my mission to help women step into their highest timeline. And DNA gatekeeping is how I'm doing this DNA gatekeeping concept. So to be a DNA gatekeeping woman, you must know what your core values are. What is a DNA gatekeeping woman? A DNA gatekeeping woman is a woman who has decided that she knows and she wants the best life for herself and all the generations that are gonna come from her womb. Obviously, it's a DNA gatekeeping woman. Women are the portal, the gate, the passage, the bridge between the spiritual and the physical, the seen and the unseen through the womb. So many things come are brought forth from the womb. And women need to be gatekeepers of the womb, the passage, that whole area, the sexual energy area. Women need to be stronger gatekeepers to protect their womb, to love, nourish, and adore their womb, to give their womb that divine protection it needs. Of course, God will always do that for us, but we have our part to play with this too. I didn't always know what my values were. I didn't always know. I had some ideas that, okay, I had this value and that value, but I didn't know at the core what my values were. And I also didn't know them enough to stand on business with them, to know that, okay, these are my values. And for that reason, this is how I'm going to act. This is how I'm going to show up in each moment, in each circumstance, in each situation. My identity stays the same because of my values. So I want us to be all on the same page when it comes to values. So I have the Cambridge Dictionary definition of values, so we can all just know exactly what values are, because we're determining our core values today and deciding that we're going to stand on them. We're going to choose them and we're going to stick to them. So core values are the beliefs people have, especially about what is right and wrong and what is important in life that controls one's behavior. And this basically tells people how to act in various situations. So that's what values are. They're basically the fundamental beliefs, principles, and motivations that guide our decisions, guide our behaviors, and guide our identity. That's what values are. So values basically, they ooze out of everything we do. Everything we do, our values basically are being shown through each action. But sometimes we haven't actually determined them. So we're subconsciously acting from our values, but we're not also consciously doing it. So once we determine our values, we can act subconsciously and consciously from our values. And when we have new values that we want to add in, we first have to consciously act in those values and then they become subconscious. So currently we all have subconscious values. Based on how we act, we have values. We can determine our values from our subconscious and now we can act with more intention and more purposeful. We can bring those subconscious values and be more purposeful with them. Or we can actually determine new values. They're going to be in the conscious, and then eventually as we practice them often, they go into subconscious and we continue to subconsciously and consciously act from our values. What do you think your values are right now? For me, some of my values are God, creativity, family, purpose, contribution, and freedom. Those are some of my values. I'm going to link down below the Brene Brown Dare to Dream values list so you can pick your values out. There are so many values lists online. So you can literally type in values list on Google and determine exactly what your values are. You want to take some time to find out, and there's going to be loads of lists. Like if one list doesn't resonate with you, you can find another list. Really find, okay, what really is important to me? What is something that these things really matter in my core being? These are things that I really are passionate about. Those are going to be your values. And you want to determine these. Again, I'm linked down below the list, the Brene Brown Dare to Lead list. You can check that list out to see if you resonate with any of those. If not, you can find another list. And determine exactly what your core values are. So linking back to the DNA gatekeeping analogy, your core values are the keys that allow access to your gate. You know how when you have a gate, a lot of gates, they have like a pad where you type in the keys in the right order, and because you've typed the keys in the right order, the gate opens. This is a similar thing to values. Your values are like the numbers that are in a sequence that allow access to your gate. But this is just kind of an analogy thing. When someone matches your values, that doesn't mean they actually get access to your gate. It kind of means that you're gonna be more open to them because now you have some sort of alignment. But again, with values, it's not just about knowing what someone's values are, it's also about witnessing their values in their identity and who they are each day. So your gate, your womb, your sexual energy is protected by your DNA gatekeeper. Your DNA gatekeeper is responsible for finding out the values of other people through observation, through asking questions, through investigating what the values of other people, through knowing the values of herself. You must first know your own values to be able to protect yourself and ensure that you're in alignment with everyone around you. Another thing about values is some of your values are going to be like your fundamental values that are going to be with you pretty much all your life. You're also going to have seasonal values. So if at one season of your life, your value is celibacy, then you must make sure that the person who you're going to potentially allow into your gate at a future time also has that value of celibacy. And then that allows you to at least be open to connection. Your values are like barriers of entry. We're not quite yet even close to actually opening the gate, but this is a barrier of entry. The values are like codes that you type into a gate. But this is not the gate to your womb. This is like a gate beforehand. There's multiple gates. There's rites of passage. There's barriers of entry before we get there. But values is a key barrier of entry. If they don't even meet your values, if they don't match your values, then there's no way they even get into your gate because they haven't even reached this gate. There's multiple gates till we get to the final gate, which is your DNA gate, which is your womb, which is your sexual energy. One of the gates, which is right at the beginning, which is value alignment. Do their values match yours? Is their value alignment? So this is what we have to find out. So you would have taken time to find out what your values are, know what your values are, and now you understand in relation to DNA gatekeeping analogy that it's one of the gates. It's one of the barriers of entry to your gate. The values. It's one of the barriers. One gate, before you get to that DNA gatekeeping ultimate gate, the values, you type them in and you get access to that one gate, the first gate of many gates before you even get to that gate, right all the way down there, which is a very, very precious gate. We need to know our values because it allows us to decide exactly who we want to be in each moment. It allows us to stand on business when it comes to who we are, how we show up, what we stand for, and why we do what we do. Values are the essence that oozes out of us as a being in each moment. It's our identity. So knowing this helps us to know who we are and also helps us to determine and understand and appreciate who other people are as well, and understand and determine if we want to be in association with these people. We could decide through the values, because a lot of the reasons why relationships don't work, why friendships don't work, is because of a misalignment in values. So the sooner you know your values and the sooner you can understand, start to perceive other people's values, the quicker you're gonna avoid the dissolutions of relationships, the dissolutions of friendships, because you're gonna know, okay, our values don't actually match from the jump. These codes aren't going in. These codes aren't matching. It's probably not going to work. It's probably not going to work. Also, relating to the DNA gatekeeping analogy and the codes must be put in the right order. So notice how when you're typing in the codes to enter a gate, if you have the codes but they're in the wrong order, you don't get access to the gate. The access is denied. That's the same thing with values. You must have a hierarchy with your values. Your top 5 values, they must be in order. Maybe your first value is God. So your second value is freedom. Your third value is family. Your fourth value is contribution, purpose, generosity. You're going to have your 5 values in order so that you can actually know, okay, what's their top value? Is their top value God? Do they walk as somebody who values God, the word of God, and what God says? Is this how they walk? Is this how they talk? Is this how they act? If not, then that's not going to work. If their value of God is like number 6 and yours is number 1, then that's still a misalignment. Even though they have the same values of you, the hierarchy of the values is not the same. So determining your values is key, and also determining the hierarchy of your values. The top 5 values really need to be like set in stone. Some of your values could also be on the same plane. Like you could have 3 values that are like your on the top. They're all number 1: God, family, and the contribution could be like all at the top. They could all be at the top. But you want to have 5 to 7 values that you know the order in which they are, so that because how you act in each moment, there's going to be a priority. When things hit the wall, how will you act? You're going to pick the top one. You're going to pick the top value. When things are going potentially wrong, you're going to gravitate towards the top value. So if someone else's top value is not similar to yours, then they're going to be gravitating towards something else when things are potentially not going exactly as planned. We default to certain things, and you want to make sure that their default is still in alignment with you. Even when things aren't going the best, their default is still good. So that's where the hierarchy comes in with values too. So let's talk about how to know what other people's values are, because this is DNA gatekeeping. This is us protecting our womb, making sure that we are creating the best life for ourselves and the generations that are going to come from our womb. So how do we know what other people's values are? There's 2 ways of finding this out. The second way is better. The first way is open communication. So you can ask people, what are your values? What do you value in life? The downside to this one is most people don't know what their values are, and they haven't taken the time to actually sit down and decide what their values are. Another downside to this one is that a lot of people can say what their values are, but they might not actually be walking in those values, as their actions may not be reflecting the values they say they have. So those are 2 downsides to asking. But of course, asking promotes open communication. It's a way to connect. So asking what people's values are is also very important. So I wanted to say this one because it is very important to ask what people's values are and see what they actually say from their mouth too. Though you should have in mind that not everyone knows what their values are, and not everybody will really be acting from the values they say, even though people also do act from the values they say as well. So it's good to give people the benefit of the doubt. But also be aware that the second point is the most important. That's why this one is more important, which is behavior observation. That is the ultimate way to know what someone's values are. People's character and people's behaviors always shows what their values are, always. It always reflects what they stand for. So the best way to really know what someone's values are is to observe how they act. I feel like this is the first approach, observation, and then later on, once you've kind of observed what their values are, you can always also ask, and then it could also confirm what you've really observed. So observation of people's actions. And how you do this is you observe people's actions through your values. Because you're going to have your values. God is your value, family, purpose, contribution, generosity. These are your values. You're going to look through the lens of your values at their actions. And if their actions don't align, then they probably don't have the same values as you. That's how you want to do it. Of course, you could, observe people just for the sake of observing them and see what their values are in isolation of your values. But because we're talking about DNA gatekeeping and looking after yourself, your womb, working on yourself, stepping into your highest timeline, you want to make sure that because you're stepping into your highest timeline, the people around you are also in alignment and also in their highest timeline. So you want to look at their actions through your values, because you want alignment with yourself, you want alignment with the people around you. So alignment in terms of actions, how people act. This is the way you're really going to determine what people's values are. And values, as I mentioned before, they ooze out of our being. They kind of radiate out of our essence as people without us really trying, because they're from the subconscious. We have values even if we haven't determined them yet. So people are always dropping little cues. We just have to be more observant of how people act and listening to what people say and how people act the first time. You kind of see them acting in a way that's a little bit suspicious and a bit strange. Obviously, there's circumstantial considerations, but generally, when people are acting in ways, they're basically giving clues as to who they are and what their values are, what they stand for, and the true essence of them. So you want to pay attention to these little cues that people are always dropping about themselves, and that will tell you, okay, are their values matching mine? Is there somebody that I can even allow past the first gate of these multiple gates to get to the ultimate gate, which is your womb? Can they even pass this gate number 1? Are our values even aligned based on how they act, based on who they are? So yeah, that's the video for today, which is about knowing your values to become a DNA gatekeeper. Determine your core values in life to be the DNA gatekeeper, to be the woman who protects her womb, protects her energy, protects her sexual energy, protects the generations that are going to come from her womb. Knowing your values in life and walking in alignment with those values. It's also important that you as a woman know your values and also walk in alignment with them, so that other people who observe you can see your values too. Of course, being a DNA gatekeeper is about being the best version of yourself, so that you can bring forth the best future generations too. But it's also about being the best version of yourself. So don't forget to know your values, determine your values, and then aim to walk in alignment with them. Especially if you're deciding on new values to uphold for yourself, you're going to have to be a bit more conscious in each moment about how you act, so that you're acting in alignment with your values and walking in alignment with your values. Eventually this will become subconscious, and then your values will just ooze out of you. Like for me, one of my top values is God. So naturally, I'm always talking about God. I'm always talking about how God is always there for us. God is always our divine protector, the divine protector of our womb, of our DNA gate. He is always there. And so that's my values. Naturally, I'm always talking about it. Naturally, that kind of radiates out of me, that God is at the center of everything I do. So that's what we want to get to as people, where people can kind of tell what your values are anyway without you having to say it. And that's also a really important key, to kind of embody the values, so that you don't have to talk too much. All your actions and your embodiment is doing the work for you. That's the ultimate cheat code to life, which is embodiment. This is why I mentioned, when finding out what other people's values are, the most important way to determine people's values is through observation of behavior and characteristics. Because embodiment is the deepest level of identity. How you act is who you are. It is your identity. So when you can embody your values on a deep level, you are absolutely going to be a DNA gatekeeper, because you're gonna know, okay, this is gate number 1. Their codes aren't matching. Because I'm so embodied in my values, there's no way that I'm even going to allow somebody who maybe their codes aren't exactly in the right order. Their hierarchy is not the level to which mine is. Their top value isn't God. Their seasonal value in that moment is not celibacy. Then if that's the case, because you're so embodied, because your values ooze out of you, you have that internal structure to stand and say, nah, I'm so grounded in my values. I know exactly who I am, what I stand for, and what I'm doing in every single moment. And for that reason, off you go. Access denied. no entry, because you are embodied in what you stand for and your values. So once you have determined your values, you take some time to embody them through your actions, through your conscious actions, and eventually it will turn into subconscious too. And then now you can act consciously and subconsciously from your values, which is even more powerful because it's got a deeper level of intention, a deeper level of purpose, a deeper level of groundedness. Like this, you know, when people walk and their walk is so intentional, it's so powerful. That's because they're not just, they're walking subconsciously, but they also have a consciousness to it. They're consciously in each moment acting in a certain way, but their subconscious is also doing the heavy lifting because they've done all the work in the behind the scenes to upgrade their subconscious mind to also carry that level of power and essence in their walk. So now that's the same thing with values. When you've established your values and they're so deeply within you, you really embody them. And this is through, in each moment you choose, when you could choose to go the other way, you choose the value. You choose the action that aligns with the value in each moment. Then it becomes autopilot. And now you are a value-driven woman. Because a DNA gatekeeping woman is a woman of value. A woman who has values. And this is the thing about being a woman of value. You need to have values to be a woman of value. If you don't have values, how can you be a woman of value? Because a lot of people talk about being a high value woman. All high value women have really strong values that they stand by and on. So be a high value woman. Step into that deep embodiment of the high value woman by having your strong values. Be that DNA gatekeeping woman, because the DNA gatekeeping woman is a high value woman. A woman who it's almost impossible to enter her sexual energy and enter her gate. That is a very high value woman. She's so obsessed with the life she's creating. She's so obsessed with the life that God has planned for her that she's not letting people in. She's not letting easy access. She's got all these gates before that gate. Again, I'll link down my playlist on DNA gatekeeping so you can see. In those videos, I'm talking about the DNA gate, but there's many gates before we get to that DNA gate. Value gate is one of them. Has the person even passed the value gate? Never mind the DNA gate. Have they even passed the value gate? Ask yourself. And then you can decide what you want to do. But first, you've got to know your own values first. That's the first step. I'm so happy that you joined me today for this amazing video about values and about stepping into your highest timeline, stepping into your DNA gatekeeping identity, being a high value woman, being a woman of value because you have values. That is you. Let's embody that now. Let's feel that emotion of being that woman of value. Say this after me. I am a woman of value. I am a woman of value. I have values. I am a woman of value. I have values. Those can be your affirmations that you now go forward and say as you're determining your values, as you're redefining your values if you already know them. Remind yourself, I am a woman of value. I have values, and therefore I stand on them, I walk in them, I embody them, and I act from them in each moment. I'm going to be doing so many more DNA gatekeeping videos. All the videos that are going to be coming up are about the gates before that DNA gate. Because there's many gates before we get to that ultimate DNA gate. There's many gates. The value gate is one of them. We're going to get into so many different gates. And I can't wait to continue to share this knowledge with you. Let me know if you guys are interested in a DNA gatekeeping course. This is something that's been on my heart to do, where there's going to be meditations, activations, teachings, and deep inner work about how to really be a DNA gatekeeper. How to know that you're so worthy. How to know that you're so valued, how to know that you're so highly adored to the point where you don't need to settle for less. You don't need to lower your standards, to have the fear to say no, to have the fear to really set boundaries because you have done the inner work. This is the course that I'm going to move forward. Let me know if you're interested in this. I would love to bring a deeper level of DNA gatekeeping to you, where we go even deeper into really what this is about and how we can step deeper and really be in alignment with what God wants from us. What God wants for the collective consciousness of women, which is to be DNA gatekeepers. So the next generations, for the future generations, so the collective consciousness can really up-level through our intentional guarding of DNA. Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, follow your purpose, be a light in this world, and I'm sending you lots of love and peace.